I'm Robert Duncan McNeill, and this is the Shuttlepod Show.
Not naming names. But after every line, he would say something awful to you in between lines.
Oh, he would scream and say the most horrible thing while we're rolling, and I kept the camera rolling.
Oh, you're talking about Dominic.
No.
I got you, buddy.
I was waiting for someone to say that.
Gonna go and do my convention thing. Got my costume, I'm going now. Yeah, we're having a ball. It's Star Trek, y'all. Hey, down the border, beam me up.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Shuttlepod Show. Today we have very special guest, Robert Duncan McNeill. We'll be answering your fan questions, playing some Star Trek trivia, finding ourselves on Connor's remote island, and much more. As always, our Patreon members get a full extended version of this episode. I'm Erica LaRose, but before we move on, we have a special message from Andy Robinson.
Like, subscribe, and join us on Patreon.
Thank you, Andy.
And now for your hosts, Connor TRINNEER and Mark Cartier.
Hi, yay. We are missing Dom today.
I know. I'm very upset about that.
He's in San Francisco
doing what I'm going to do tomorrow.
He's going to be there too. You might see him.
He's going to be there tomorrow too?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think front row.
Wow. We are not front row. It's Queen.
Oh, you're going
for
to
the
Queen too?
concert tomorrow night. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'm very excited.
It should be great. Are you a Queen?
I am a Queen. Yes.
I was going to go ... fan.
I know. I think of myself as royalty. So yes.
Well, sure.
Yes, yeah. I loved Queen when I was young, and then my wife Rebecca and I saw this documentary about Adam Lambert joining the band, and it was just so incredible. Like he was incredible. The way they sort of relaunched the band after Freddie died, you know, they kind of said, we'll never do this again. Like we can't replicate it. And then something about Adam Lambert and his version, his interpretation, he's not doing an impersonation.
He's not.
No, he's not impersonating Freddie Mercury, but he is on his own just really the perfect fit for the band.
Right.
Like it's
He's got the pipes for it.
Oh my gosh.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where is it?
I don't know. Is it the soccer stadium?
It must be.
I don't know.
I think that's where it's a soccer stadium.
I think, okay. Then
Down by the Coliseum.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't lived here in a long time in Los Angeles.
How long?
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, I left here in 2014, 15.
To where?
15. You know, I've traveled.
yeah.
I've traveled.
What is your address specifically?
Wait, so you don't live in Los Angeles, right?
No, I don't live here.
Oh,
no.
Welcome
I
back.
know, it's strange. I don't think I've
You
been
came
here
here
for a
just
couple
for
of
us?
years. I did.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Thank you.
and Queen.
And Queen. And your
Yeah,
birthday.
I mean, Queen was a bonus. This is the reason to come, yes.
Before we get too far into this, though,
Yes, sir.
Proper introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers, welcome back to the Shuttlepod Show. We have today royalty.
Yes.
Star Trek
Queen.
royalty. We have the Queen. Star Trek. Actor, director, producer, at different times and different places in no particular order. A dear friend of mine, Robbie Duncan McNeill. Thank you.
Really awesome. Yeah, you guys are doing. I mean, I've seen some of your show. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen some of it.
The good stuff or the not so good stuff?
I think mostly the good stuff.
Oh, nice.
No, it's really great.
Thank you. We modeled, or we did it after that conversation that we had with you and Garrett in Vegas.
I remember that convention because we had just started. Yeah, we had just started, I think, our podcast, our audio podcast that we're doing, the Delta Flyers. And when Garrett asked me to do this and get involved in something like this, I was like, who's going to listen? Like, really? Does anybody care? And I was shocked at the enthusiasm, the support, and I think for us, just the kind of community we sort of created, which I'm sure you've experienced that too. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, it feels really good.
It feels really, really good. And it was an opportunity for me to go back and watch our show in a way that I'd never, I mean, a lot of the episodes I'd never seen, first of all.
Oh, wow.
Right.
You know, because you're working, you're
Right.
making the show, you're working 14, 15, whatever hours a day.
Is this episode about me? No.
No, really, yeah. And even if I did have a big episode, sometimes I'd be working when it aired,
Right.
and I just, you know, I wouldn't see a lot of them. So this was a great, our podcast was a great opportunity to go back episode by episode and kind of relive those 7 years and the stories and see some of my castmates do things that were so impressive that I just never saw before.
Right.
See it in a different light. So yeah, it was
That's
great.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very
And so we, on the heels of that conversation, waiting for, because at the time it was the first convention, I can't say post-COVID, we were near the end of it, where we had plexiglass everywhere.
Yeah.
Garrett had said how much fun you guys were doing, and I thought to myself, I actually kicked Dominic. we should do this.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. And then
And you did.
I had done a film with Mark and expressed, you know, the interest in doing this, and he was like, "Let me."
I said, shut up.
Yeah.
I said, shut up. I have an idea. Let me produce it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your credit,
Awesome.
this is how we're doing what we're doing, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Because your guys' show is so great. Erica, by the way, is more familiar with the Delta Flyers than she is, or at the time anyway, with actual Star Trek.
I was, because we watched it, we listened to it, for many, many hours across the country.
Really?
Driving across the country.
On multiple road trips across the country,
Yeah.
I made her listen to hours and hours worth of the Delta Flyers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which was interesting because I didn't really know much about Star Trek yet. So.
Good naps.
Yeah.
Really good
Really
naps.
good naps.
Like, well, at least I know
But I enjoyed it. It was
your show is really great.
Yeah,
fantastic.
we have a good.
It's unique
It's
and-
found sort of its own little
Rhythm.
format and
Yeah.
rhythm and
And
personality.
you're busy though, so I mean, do you guys without fail pull one off every week?
Yeah. So my wife Rebecca is very involved in sort of running
Yeah.
this company. If it weren't for her, I don't know what. And Megan, between Rebecca and Megan, they keep the trains moving. But Rebecca was always of the mind that, you know, if we're going to promise people who subscribe, if we're going to promise something, we have to deliver. Like, we can't say, if you donate $5 a month or something, we can't do it. Like, we have to show up and do it. And so the way that we do it by Zoom, ours is all, you know, I can take it with me wherever I go. So sometimes I'm working all week on whatever show, and then Saturdays and Sundays I'll sit down in front of my laptop and we do our episodes. Yeah.
Do Megan and Rebecca edit? And
They edit.
do they?
Yeah, we started with another editor originally, and then they sort of trained to do it, and they swap it back and forth. And
That's amazing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they mind the social media and
They do all the social
merchandising?
media. They do the
And the artwork, right?
the artwork. Yeah, Rebecca does these cartoons that are part of our sort of branding and
Cottage industry.
logo, and yeah,
really
it's
cool.
amazing.
That's awesome. So you were born in the North
yes.
Carolina,
Yes,
Tobacco Road.
I was
Raleigh.
kind of, yeah. Rex Hospital,
Huh?
the old Rex Hospital in Raleigh, North Carolina. Yeah.
And you went to Atlanta.
You know off the top of your head?
He's been researching.
See,
We have a research
here's the
department
difference
here.
between our podcasts. I have a screen in front of me, and I can read the bio and the way. You just know all this? Okay, keep going. I
do.
love it.
do. And then when you were 7, you had an experience in English class.
Yes.
Remember your first kiss? I was there.
We read Our Town in English class. You moved
Yes,
to Atlanta.
Born in Raleigh.
Yeah.
A lot happened between Raleigh and Atlanta. So, yeah, wow. So my parents were very young when I was born. They were in college, and my dad actually got kicked out of college the year after I was born because his grades were so bad. So he had to fight his way back into school. He was going to NC State, getting a degree in computer engineering. So I remember being at his college graduation. I was like 4 years old or something, but I remember it. I remember it was hot, And I remember they had me in a jacket, and I had to I took the jacket off, I took my shirt off. I'm because I was sweating because it was so hot.
You're doing great, Dad.
Exactly. Yeah, so he graduated, if I was 4, then 68, 69, 68, probably something like that.
Right.
And then we moved to Rockville, Maryland, outside of DC. And he worked for GE Computer Company. And I loved DC. It was great. We had I loved it there. We were in Rockville for about 3 years. Then we moved outside of Philadelphia. Then we were there for 2 years. Then we moved back down to Gaithersburg, Maryland, again near DC, but a little more country.
All for work.
All for work. Yeah, he kept getting transferred. Which, by the way, we talked to Billingsley on our podcast recently.
I saw that. Yeah,
Billingsley's dad worked for GE too, and his dad got transferred all the time. And I was like, no wonder we get along so well. Our dad,
we have the same dad.
It's like being in the army.
The same dad. It was kind of like being in the army.
Right.
Yeah, because Billingsley said where was he born? Now I forget. But he moved down to Louisiana. He moved to Ohio or something. I can't remember. Alabama.
He was in
Louisiana,
Connecticut for a bit too, right?
and then ended up in Connecticut. So
Yeah.
his Connecticut.
I'm from there. That's why I remember.
Yeah, Billingsley's Connecticut landing for high school is kind of like my Atlanta landing for high school. Our fathers got transferred a lot.
You didn't get to Atlanta until high school?
7th grade, 8th grade, something like that.
What's it like growing up that way? I mean, never knowing where you're going to be from time to time. I mean, you moved a lot, obviously.
We moved a lot. And for me, I always felt like the outsider because we were moving, even if you're there for a couple of years, by the time you just start making friends and start feeling familiar with things, you're moving again.
Right.
So
What did your mom do?
she had gone to nursing school, but then she dropped out of nursing school when I was born, and
Because you were a full-time job.
because I was a handful. I was definitely a handful.
Do you have a sister?
A younger sister, yeah. Yes. Kathy, yeah.
Of the places you moved around as a kid, did you have a favorite? Did you have
Atlanta.
Atlanta was your favorite?
Yeah, Atlanta's my favorite.
So you get to Atlanta. Had you had you had your moment of Wizard of Oz yet?
No, that was Atlanta.
That was Atlanta.
So we moved to Atlanta, 7th grade. My little sister was probably about 3 or 4. So, all little girls back then would take ballet and tap dancing and things like that. That was just, especially in our community. So my mom signed my sister up for her little girls ballet class. And then she came home one day with a flyer. My mom says, hey, they've got a children's theater at this studio where your sister's taking ballet and tap dancing and things. And they need like 100 kids to be munchkins. Do you want to do that? And I was like, what's a play? I literally had never seen a play or theater or anything like that. Yeah, but if there's 100 kids, I was like, oh, maybe I can meet some kids. I'm new to this town. I don't know anybody. And so I said, sure. And then the day of the audition, you had to go in and try out for the play. She drives up.
Like, what do you mean? Like a piece or?
I didn't know. I had no idea. They were like, come for tryouts. And so I had never been to a tryout, much less a play or anything. So I didn't know anything.
Right.
But we pull up and I see all these kids in the parking lot by this dance studio running around, and I was like, nope, I don't want to do this. Nope. And my mother, to her credit, she was like, I signed you up. They're expecting you. You have an appointment. And you need to, if you made a promise to show up, you're going to show up. You don't have to do this. If you get in, you don't have to do the play. But she's like, you made a commitment. You made a promise. So you got to go in. And I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. I was terrified.
Yeah.
And she takes me in, and there's all these kids. They seem to all know each other, and I was just terrified.
Talking theater talk,
and they just knew each other. And in this lobby, by the way, I have a vivid memory of it's covered in photos of dance recitals and beauty pageant kids. There was a lot of that, and trophies from all their dance competitions and things like that. I'd never seen anything like this. I was like, what is it? There's trophies and there's costumes and there's kids. And then they had a couple little scenes. I don't even remember what the scene was, but you'd have to read a few lines and you'd have to sing a song. So I go in the back room and they read the little scene with me and I say the words. I have no idea what I did. And then they said, do you want to sing a song for us? And I said, I don't have a song or anything. And she goes, well, what about Happy Birthday? Do you know Happy Birthday? And I said, yeah. So I sang Happy Birthday.
Oh my gosh.
That's cute. Can you do it now?
I'd like to do it a little better right now. No.
Right, warm up now. Okay.
Well, that's funny because on our podcast, whenever we have birthdays with some of our Patreon subscribers, I sing. It's my tradition to sing Happy Birthday. I never realized that was my first audition song.
That's cool.
But I think I've improved since then. Yeah, I feel pretty good.
So did you get bitten?
I don't know that I got bitten by performing because I was very shy.
You weren't outgoing.
I was not outgoing at all. I was very shy, painfully shy. I didn't get bitten by performing. That was not the attraction. But the attraction was seeing all these kids that seemed to like really connect. Mm. And I looked around because I didn't see that kind of behavior at school or other places where people just really seemed tight.
Right.
And so that was the thing. I mean, if I were to, go to a therapist about all this, they'd probably say, oh yeah, it's not that you care about being creative or want to be a star. You just want a family. You just want to belong.
Well, after moving around a lot, that was definitely craved that.
Yeah, I totally did.
So you booked it on his birthday?
I was a munchkin.
Nice.
And then I got upgraded because one of the kids fell out that was playing...
I was going to say, were you a specifically identified munchkin? Or?
Well, I was a munchkin, but then I got an upgrade because Auntie M and Uncle, I was the uncle.
In the beginning.
Get him into the tornado shelter?
In the beginning and at the end. Oh, Uncle.
Auntie M. And Uncle Henry.
Uncle Henry, okay. Maybe that's it. That was I got upgraded like halfway through rehearsing. And I put on I drew lines with I wish
awesome.
I could find pictures of it. God. It's amazing. I was 12 years old with lines. Yeah, and I sprayed silver in my hair. And,
I really got into it.
Uncle Henry, it was
Made
Uncle
yourself
Henry.
Look like me.
Auntie M and Uncle Henry.
So you do the show.
Yes.
And is it a community?
So they rehearsed at this dance studio for months. Which was my favorite part. It still is my favorite part. Rehearsals are my favorite part. Performing. But we rehearsed for months on the weekends. Saturdays and Sundays I spent at that dance studio. And then they performed in this old theater, which is no longer there in Atlanta, it's sad to say, called the Peachtree Playhouse. And it was like a vaudeville theater. So it was built in the teens, 1917 or something. Right. And it looked like a little Broadway house. It had all the ornate sort of gold leaf and all that stuff. I mean, the backstage was falling apart. It was a dump. But when you stepped out onto the stage and looked in the theater, it looked like a Broadway theater. It looked
I forget
beautiful.
The name of the producing company, but there was a group who built all these theaters. One of them was the theater in Norfolk Virginia Stage Company had one of these.
Yeah.
All up and down the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah.
Where when you had, you do the route.
Yeah, you do the circuit. You were in the vaudeville. You'd take your act out, your comedy or your tap dance numbers or whatever.
And full size 800
Yeah,
seats.
this was about 900 seats.
Yeah. Yeah. And beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was also, it did have some professional theater and it rented out to local groups. I remember seeing Leonard Nimoy in a one-man show about Van Gogh in the same theater.
No kidding.
Where we did our children's theater.
He cut off his ear, right?
Yeah.
Did Nimoy cut off his ear on stage?
I think he did.
That's
no,
I don't. Blood is spraying.
And Shatner was
So then, how does this manifest your next?
It kind of exploded for me. So I do this children's theater, and the lady, Martha Edens, that ran it was a local actress and all-around Renaissance woman. She did all kinds of things. So she really took me under her wing, and I started doing plays there every year. But then I started taking dance class. I love tap dancing. I got obsessed with tap dancing, and
Can you still do it?
I could still do it. Yeah, I could pull off a shuffle off the buffalo or something. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, I did that too.
Did you really?
I did some tap dance. My tap dance teacher taught me in flip-flops though, so that was really a little hard to learn.
Connor, your mom is here. Was he a good tap dancer?
I don't remember him ever being a
Oh. You're underwhelming, Connor.
I took it for a whole summer,
Did you do it secretly?
I guess. My parents are here. Michael and Judith. Want to say hi? Yeah.
Hi.
So you get all.
So I start doing all that. I'm taking tap dancing. I'm doing these. This lady Martha put together like a little. Oh, I forgot about this little detail. So this Wizard of Oz production, we end up doing it 2 years in a row. The first year I'm Uncle Henry and a Munchkin, and the second year they do it again, and I get upgraded to the Lion. The second year.
Oh.
Yes.
The Cowardly Lion?
Yes. But what's exciting is both of those years, we had another young man who was a few years older than me playing the Scarecrow, and he was phenomenal. And his name is John Schneider.
Oh.
And he became the Dukes of Hazzard guy.
Right.
But he started, or not started, but he was a part of our children's theater.
Wow.
And John was like probably 17 or 18, and I was like 13 or 14 or something. And I lived near this dance studio where we did all these rehearsals, but a lot of times I needed a ride or whatever, and John had come over in his TR6, his old Triumph TR6 at 18 years old.
Cool as beans.
Pull up, I'd jump in, and he'd take me, because, John Schneider and I
Jump into the window?
I did. I
Dukes of
jumped
Hazzard
over that, slid across the thing.
Oh, the bridge is out.
Awesome.
Yeah, John was a bit of he was definitely like an older brother role model. I mean, we had no idea that you could be on a TV show in my little community, but John figured it out.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Was he a dude then, even?
He was really cool. He was awesome to the other kids, I was like I said, I'm probably 5 years younger than him or something. Maybe he was 19. He was definitely on the older side. And then I remember we did these plays. I remember John got a professional job in Atlanta at this theater called the Manhattan Yellow Pages, where they did like a Vegas style review. And John got cast in this thing, and he was like a singer. He's got a great voice, by the way.
He does.
And I remember going as a teenager, a bunch of us from the Children's Theater went down to this, nightclub Vegas style show in Atlanta, and there's John. And he's getting paid.
He's made it.
He's made it. He's doing the review downtown. Little did we know he was going to be a TV star.
Wow.
I don't know how that happened. Like when we all heard John Schneider did a pilot for a TV show, we're like, what's a pilot? Dude, we didn't know. And how he's not really on TV. Right. He can't really be in a real TV show. It's got to be like something else.
Well, it's funny when I started, the idea that I was ever going to be in front of a camera was not even on the table.
Same.
I was, my dream at the time was, I'm going to live out of 2 suitcases, and with, God's blessing, I'm going to be doing regional theater.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe every now and then I'm going to get a Broadway show in the, with 3 lines and get my unemployment and live life that way. I mean, I really believe that. I was going to eat out of Tupperware for the rest of my life at rehearsal, and was going to be happy as a clam with it.
Said you were running around in Tuckerwear.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
I get it.
I pay attention.
That's good.
It's an upgrade.
So if there's something else I'm missing, so how do you wind up at Juilliard? You didn't go to college before then, did you?
No. So I'm doing all this local theater and in Atlanta, and the summer before my senior year, between my junior and senior year of high school, I go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to work at an amusement park one summer in the shows there, because Martha Edens, that lady who ran that little theater company, had written and directed and was directing this kids show for a theme park that was like a 20-minute kids show that would play 5 times a day at the theme park. And she's like, hey, if you want to go up and work at this theme park, you can be in this it's a monster review. I was Frankenstein, of course.
Sure.
Typecasting.
Right.
And I go to Pittsburgh that summer to do this kids show 5 times a day.
Dr. Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster?
The monster.
monster.
I was the monster. I had to put green paint.
Awesome.
Bolts on your neck.
Bolts and the whole thing 5 times a day. I'd do that show. And then at night, I would do a big band review with like the more adult themed, nostalgic kind of Americana music. But I did that all summer in Pittsburgh. And I met one of the guys in the band, the bass player in the band. His sister came near the end of the summer to see the show. And we started dating, and that became my girlfriend. And I was, madly in love. And I'm like, she's going to New York next year to college. I'm going to move to New York. We'll be together. And so I really went to New York to follow the girl more than anything. And also theater too, but I didn't go to college. I just went there to work.
You didn't go to a hack joint. You wound up.
Well, I didn't go to school for 2 years. I went to New York and started working.
Oh.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I worked. The first thing I did in New York was a national tour of the Fantastics, a non-equity national tour, but it was great. I was out for 6 months and I came back and I was like, wow, this is great. It was my first audition in New York. And I get this non-equity tour. I'm like, yeah, I'll just go back and get another job.
That's awesome.
Didn't quite work out.
That's funny.
I did a bunch of stuff. I worked at the Goodspeed Opera House. I got my equity card off Broadway with a musical called Preppies that was a new musical. I went to do dinner theater in Florida for a while. Everything out of New York, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I did some workshops of some new musicals and things like that. But it was a couple of years of like this musical theater rotation that I was doing. It was all musicals. It was singing, dancing, things like that.
No straight plays.
No straight plays at all. And after I'm in New York for a couple of years, and I started going to the theater and seeing some amazing straight plays. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why am I stuck in this musical thing? Like I want to transition over to the straight plays, but no one would take me seriously. I couldn't get a job. And I was like, well, the only way to change that is to go to one of these fancy programs. Like, seems like as soon as you go to a fancy program, all of a sudden
You're legitimate.
you're legit.
Yeah.
So I auditioned for ACT in San Francisco, American Conservatory Theater. I auditioned for Juilliard and Yale. And I got into Juilliard and ACT. Mm. And I actually thought ACT was a better fit for me. But again, the girl was still in New York. And I'm like, I should stay in New York and I'll go to Juilliard. So I did.
What was it like?
It was great. I loved it. And another thing that happened with Juilliard, as soon as I put Juilliard, I was doing a musical at Goodspeed Opera House up in Connecticut one summer. And I'd gotten into Juilliard, so I put it on my resume. And all of a sudden I got my first movie audition. And I got my first, and I was like, I have not even been to class yet. I know nothing about what Juilliard teaches, but yet I got a movie audition for, a couple of movie auditions that summer. And I'm in the chorus, a tiny role up in Goodspeed Opera House in a musical, but I'm going in for these movies on my day off and things. Just because it says Juilliard Group 17 down at the bottom.
Group 17.
Yes, I was Group 17.
So Delancey also went, I believe.
Yes, he was probably Group 3.
I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds about right.
And, like your first year, how many students?
The first year we had around 25, I can't remember exactly, 25 in our class. And the way the Juilliard worked back then was the first 2 years, the full class was there. And at the end of the second year, they would cut about half the class.
Yeah.
So you go from 25 down to 12 or so, something like that. And so I go to Juilliard, loved it. After my first year at Juilliard that summer, I do a little independent movie. I do The Twilight Zone for CBS, the reboot back in 84, something like that. And so I do a couple things on film. I do like a after school special or something like that. Like all of a sudden I couldn't get arrested for anything but musicals a year before, and now I'm doing other things.
Were you, you remember your first experiences in front of a camera?
Yeah, one of them was that Twilight Zone episode, and it was me and Justine Bateman, and she was on Family Ties at the time, so she was the big star, and we were playing sort of teenage lovers in different time zone. That was the episode was called A Message from Charity, and it was about a girl back in like Salem, New England, Massachusetts, back in Pilgrim times, and a boy in the 1980s who start to have sort of telepathy. They can see what the other sees. They can hear each other's voices. Justine was the girl in Salem, Massachusetts, and I was the boy in 1980. And here's what I remember. We start doing the scenes, and I had gone through a year of Juilliard. So they had been beating my speech. Like it's all about speech and technique and all that kind of stuff. Diction and speech. Justine Bateman is a Valley girl. And she's playing 1600. And I'm straight out of Juilliard, and I'm like, well, Charity. You know, I'm like kind of like Madonna in her British phase. Right. She had that really affected accent. And the director comes over, he's like, stop with the Juilliard thing. Like,
did he really?
Yeah, he's literally like, you can't, like, just talk like a regular person. And I was like, but they've been beating this into me. Like, I have to speak, you know, my diction.
Jack Lemmon says, you know, when he first started that he was doing something, I forget, maybe Billy Wilder was his director, I forget who it was, and he kept doing a scene, and maybe it was Wilder said, you know, it's less. And Jack's like, you do nothing? It's like, yes. Start there.
Start with nothing.
Start with nothing.
It's funny, I just saw Armin and Kitty this morning, and it's funny you bring this up. I'm going to tangent for a minute. I remember reading Jason Bateman talking about directing actors who weren't experienced, who had no training. And he said one thing he did is when he was directing them, he would tell them, he'd say, let's run the lines, but I don't want to say my line, and you just think your line. Don't say anything. Just think it. And then I'll say my next line, and you just think your line. Don't ever say anything.
Right.
Because a lot of times actors who aren't experienced want to come out and they want to say, well, that drink was very hot. Like they want to emphasize something instead of just going, oh, that drink was very hot.
Yeah.
Like throw it away. Like just think it. You don't have to do anything. And I loved when Jason Bateman was talking about that technique because, yeah, on film, very little is needed. Very, very little.
Right.
I don't think I learned that until well into Voyager, to be honest. Like,
well, yeah, as opposed to on the stage when, you know, your instrument is meant to project everything.
It's supposed to hit the back row.
Exactly.
Yeah, like everybody's got to.
Right.
Yeah.
And with a camera in front of your face, you know, they're right there.
Yeah.
And that's a process that I found, because I also did a soap opera where I was terrible in. Oh, man.
I did a soap.
I know.
Yeah.
You did
All My Children.
All My Children.
Yeah.
I did One Life to Live when it was still around.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was right across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the old kind of like old churchy looking building.
Yeah, they were on, was it 65th or 60?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
We were at 66th in Columbus, and they were at 65th between Central Park West. And, yeah, we could walk right across.
Right. Were you a contract player?
I did 3 years on it, yeah.
Oh,
I was there a long time.
Well, you must have learned an extraordinary amount.
A lot of bad habits, on the soap, a lot of bad habits.
Like what?
I got really lazy. We had teleprompters.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And I saw some of the older actors. You know, at first I learned all my lines. I was very prepared. And then I see these older actors who'd been doing it for 10 years or more, and how they would sort of, their technique of acting in a scene and then sort of thinking about something and
They were
getting their
glad they were looking at the lines.
you know, or writing it on a piece of mail that they were looking at and looking through the mail as their lines were right here in front. Right. So
That's amazing.
So I see all these bad habits. I'm like, I don't need to learn my lines. I'll use
Write them
use
everywhere.
my teleprompter technique.
Yeah.
Or the other thing was like, if you're in a scene with somebody here and there's a teleprompter there, you don't use that teleprompter. You use the one that they have. So you say something, and then you look back. 'Cause- you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
bad habits.
Right.
Really
Very
bad
relating to a
habits.
person.
Yeah.
Is it because they're getting so much material like the night before?
Yeah,
or?
you're doing an hour every day. So
Yeah. It's a lot, right?
It's a lot.
And I'm sure also, you know, as opposed to Star Trek was like, lines are a suggestion. If you get through it,
Yeah, if everybody said something and got to the end of the scene, we're good.
yeah,
Moving
moving
on.
on.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Did you wind up after Juilliard getting gigs in straight plays, or were you still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was second year at Juilliard, I came back and loved it there, and I'd had that great summer doing a couple TV shows, and I'm not doing musicals anymore. This is amazing. And then I get a call from my agent who said, hey, All My Children, I had auditioned for All My Children like a while back, but I didn't get it. They hired someone else. And he said, All My Children called, and they're getting rid of that guy they hired, and they loved what you did, and they want you to do the soap, but it's like a 2-year contract. And I was at school, and I was like, I don't know. It was hard. It was hard for me because I didn't want to leave school. So I went to Michael Langham, who was the head of the school at the time. And I said, hey, Michael, I'm putting myself through school. I'm paying for all of this. My family is not supporting me.
Right.
And I have this chance to go do a soap opera for a couple of years, make some money. I'd love to come back. And they had allowed 2 of my classmates to do that. One was Doug Hutchison, who went and did
Oh yeah, Doug.
Doug, do you know Doug?
Uh huh.
So Doug was in my class. He went to do a Garson Kanin play at the Guthrie, and they told Doug he could come back. He didn't, but they told him he could.
Right.
And then John Tenney was in my class, and John Tenney got the first national tour of The Real Thing, and they told him he could come back. So I thought, great, I'll just go to Michael and say I got a soap, and I'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and he goes, it's not a question of money, Robert. It's a question of whether you want to be a real actor or not.
Oh.
And I was just like, I thought, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, it is a question of money for me.
Yeah.
He knew my personal life, and without going down that dark road, I was supporting myself and there was no resources. And it was absolutely a question of money. And I was just like, fuck you. I was like, I'm going to go do my soap, and I'm going to do things I love. And it was I didn't like it.
Oh.
Yeah. So I didn't go back.
That was going to be my next question.
Because it was definitely a question of money.
And then there were 13.
Yes. There were 13.
But I mean, gosh, when I got to New York, I remember thinking, God, if I could only get a soap.
Yeah. It was a big job in New York. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because you could do a soap and a Broadway show at night. Like there were people.
Wow, yeah.
It was the only TV in town.
Right.
There was a couple of series filming in New York at the time. It was long before Law and Order and that whole beast.
Juggernaut.
Yeah. There was Days and Nights of Molly Dodd, I think was one of the shows. Legwork and then Equalizer. I think those are the only TV shows filming in New York.
They didn't make it easy.
No, there were not a lot of TV shows. And then there were soaps, and there were tons of them.
Yeah.
And it was a great gig.
Yeah. Most of them were in New York.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I loved it. Yeah, Lauren Holly played my girlfriend on the soap.
Really?
Yeah, Maurice Bernard, who went on to be a very big soap opera star, still is. He played the third, part of the triangle there. So
Right.
I had some great actors in that little circle. Yeah, it was awesome. I had a blast.
So you get some money in your pocket, and do you stick around or do you hightail it to Los Angeles?
No, I stuck around. I did So I did the soap for 2 years, and then they wanted me to extend for another 2. And I told them I'd extend for 1 more year. And in the middle of all that, I did this movie, Masters of the Universe. That was with a bunch of people. Courtney Cox it was me and Courtney were the teenagers in it. Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella was in the movie. It's a horrible, amazing, wonderful movie.
Yeah, it's got that sort of Flash Gordon thing about it.
Oh my God, it's such a
awesome.
It's so awesome, awful.
it's amazingly awesome. But we didn't realize it at the
I'm really
time.
glad you're talking about it because it was on my list of things.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, let's talk about it.
Did you think? Well,
Here's
here
the thing about the Masters for me. I was doing the soap in New York. I had in my contract, I had 2 weeks a year that I could put in for vacation. And I was at the cusp of the first year to the second year. So I said to the producers, I said, hey, I got this movie. It's a 6-week shoot. If I take my first year 2 weeks, my second year 2 weeks, then we only have to work out 2 weeks of me doing both the movie and the soap.
Yeah.
And they were kind of hesitant, but they were like, okay. So they gave me my 2 plus 2 off. And then I thought, I'm only going to need 2 weeks to sort this out. Well, that movie, Masters, was such a production disaster that it didn't finish in 6 weeks. It didn't finish in 7 weeks. It didn't finish in 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It didn't finish in 9 or 10 or 11 or 12. It finished in almost 14 weeks.
Runaway production.
It was just insane. And so my little time off from the soap evaporated. And now I'm stuck halfway in this movie in California and a soap in New York. And there were times where I'd do the soap all day. And then I'd get on a flight at Newark at the 8:30 flight or something, because I'd be on the soap till 5, and I'd rush to the airport. I'd buy a ticket at the counter. That's how
back then
you could do that. And I'd get on a plane and I'd show up at midnight in Whittier to shoot a night scene on Masters. And it was just insane. Like there were days where I would be shooting the soap in the day and the movie in the same day with a flight across the country.
And never a day off.
No, it was bad. But I was young. Yeah, I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought I was so big time. And I thought I was making this great big, the next E.T. or something.
That's how it was billed. The next E.T.
Was it?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
E.T.
That's what the director thought. That's what he thought he was making. But
No, it's something.
it was
And
his,
again, you just didn't have any idea. Or did you? You were like, is this a hunk of crap?
I think we kind of did as it started
Carried
taking
on.
so long. But there were so many,
Let's just say, what were the issues? What was dragging it out so long?
a lot of things. It started as a non-union crew, and the crew struck in the middle. So it did go union, like halfway through or something. In fact, one of our electricians on Star Trek, on Enterprise and Voyager, Ian, he was an electrician on Masters. That was his first.
Really?
That was his first union gig, and then he came. Yeah, he was on Star Trek for years.
Wow.
So, yeah, there was a couple of people. Mike Westmore did the makeup on Masters of the Universe. So I knew Mike and that whole, all those guys. Yeah, yeah,
Full circle.
yeah. A bunch of actors that ended up coming on to Star Trek shows that I worked with on Masters on the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
So then do you lose the soap? How does...
No, I did a lot of that crazy flying back and forth, and they weren't really happy about it, but we were sort of in it. It's like we got it, and the movie was in it too. So everybody sort of had to compromise and talk ahead of time, and yeah, we worked it out somehow. And then I stayed on the soap for 1 more year. I extended, and I got a Daytime Emmy nomination, acting nomination on that year, which was very cool. Didn't win it, but I was, that was kind of cool.
It's a blessing to be nominated, Robbie.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the thing about it was, it's a Daytime Emmy, so it's not quite as fancy as a...
Smaller.
Yeah.
It's
It's a smaller Emmy.
Yeah.
Still cool.
It's made of plastic.
Tiny
But
statue.
I got nominated, and I was like, I'm never going to win this thing. Like, I didn't have a big enough storyline that year. Like, I was just like, there's no way. And so I didn't write a speech or anything. And then I go to they had it at the Waldorf Astoria in New York, the Daytime Emmys that year. And I go and I start walking down the red carpet. I'm like, oh shit, what if I win?
Yeah.
Like that was at the first time that I thought, oh my God, like I'm really nominated for this Emmy thing. And I'm gonna have to be one of those people that gets up and says, thanks to this person. So when I got to the table, all I was doing was like, I was panicking.
My agent,
Scrambling.
I was
family.
panicking. I'm like writing this all down, going, what am I going to say? What am I going to say if this happens? Oh my God. Because there was only 3 of us nominated that year.
Oh, wow.
Oh, geez.
And
Do you remember who they were? The other two?
it was Billy Warlock was the guy that won it. He was on, years later, he was on like...
Dark hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Billy Warlock. He's a good actor. He's
He is
been
a
on
good
a
actor.
few things. I think he was on Baywatch. Not that that's
The epitome of
the epitome of
acting.
award-winning. But I think he did that for years. Yeah, Billy Warlock. He won it, and me, and I don't remember who the other person was.
So does this...
So I finished the soap, and then I had a little money, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to the theater. I'm going to go do some theater. And the first thing I get was a national tour, the first national tour of Into the Woods, the Broadway company, the first
awesome.
Broadway company.
Who did you play?
I was Jack in the Beanstalk.
Fun.
Charlotte Ray was my mom.
Oh, my God, really?
Yeah. And Cleo Lane was the witch. And I'm trying to think of famous people. Nobody else, really. I mean, there are a lot of theater people, but Charlotte Ray and Cleo Lane were sort of names that they could promote.
How long was the tour?
What was your song? There's a giant in the
Giants in-
sky. Yeah, that's funny. I dream about that musical.
It's a
I don't
great,
know why.
it's a great show.
musical.
It's a great musical, and it was, early on, it was a big Broadway hit.
Yeah.
The first time, this was 88, I guess, something like that.
That was the Cinderella's Prince
You were?
24 years ago.
Yeah?
If you two want to do a
Yeah, you want to do
You
some...
could sing.
drop one.
You could.
Yeah.
That's
You
funny.
can sing.
Yeah.
Anything can happen in the woods, I think.
Yeah, that's it.
May I kiss you?
No, you
So long
cannot.
ago.
Oh, it's funny. So you were a prince, and wasn't Chris Pine, another Star Trek
He
alumni,
was
in the
Cinderella's
movie?
prince.
He was the prince.
In the movie.
And
that's
I
right.
was the Jack.
Yeah.
And who were you?
Big, tall,
I was a janitor. The stage at the end of the show and says, "Gosh, I love being in the theater."
I was the guy who auditioned.
Yeah. I was the reader for the
Oh,
auditions.
nice.
No, I can't sing.
No?
No.
You never did
But
a
you're good at
musical?
karaoke.
No, I karaoke. Karaoke's all about selling something, whether or not you can
Yes.
keep it to
Yeah.
No, the closest I ever got to doing a musical was doing The Irresistible Rise of Arturo Ui,
Mhm.
which is a play with music.
With music, yeah.
Yeah. And I had to sing a song. And no.
No.
Like to a girl or
To
a crowd?
I played, who did I play? I played,
You know what it makes me think of? Keep thinking of who you played.
uh,
But it makes me think of whenever there's like, you're doing a TV show or something and characters are supposed to sing a song. And they're supposed to just be normal people. But it's always actors in the TV show playing a normal person singing a song, but they've sung in musicals. And I always felt like when I had to do that, if I had to sing in a TV show or a place where you're playing a character who's just singing a song.
right.
Like, how do you do that without performing like you're being a professional?
there it is. That's how you be normal. Yeah.
Because we do that in real life all the
Yeah.
time.
You took normal
I'm so
class,
moved
clearly.
that nothing can express this at the moment other than I'm breaking into song.
Yes.
I'm so in love.
Hey, that was good.
That's all I
Should have
can
done
do.
musical.
I can't carry it.
So I do that, do the musical, do the tour.
And it was how long? Sorry, the tour? Were they a year?
I don't know how long the tour ran in total. I did it for probably 6 months, I think. The first 6 months. I really wanted to do the LA portion. So we were at the Amundsen. I did Florida, whatever cities we did up through LA, and then I left shortly after LA. We sort of sat down at the Amundsen for like 3 months, which was great.
Oh, like a residency.
Yeah.
Were you being drawn to Los Angeles?
I think at that point I thought, oh, I'll go do this. It'll give me some time in LA. It's going to be at the Amundsen from like January through April. which is perfect for pilot season. So I thought, oh, that's great. It'll time out great. And
did you have babies yet?
I did not. I got married that year, right at the end of that tour. God, I'm trying to remember. I should have prepared for this. I should have made notes. You're doing this without any notes.
It's all in there.
Let's see. I did the first national tour. Then I got married, and then I moved back to New York, and then did a bunch of theater back there. Yeah, I did stuff at like Playwrights Horizons and at the Public Theater. I did another workshop with Stephen Sondheim, which was incredible.
Wow.
Because I had done the tour of Into the Woods and I got to work with Stephen on that rehearsal process. And then we did this musical at the Public, a workshop of something he never finished called Muscle. And Madeline Kahn was in that workshop. So I got to work with Madeline Kahn before she passed away, which was amazing. Yeah, I did a bunch of theater around in the city. I can't remember what else.
So you were in that coterie of people who were, doing gigs in the nice, good theaters, maybe not Broadway, but, the off-Broadway, really good spots.
Yeah, I was doing some cool stuff. Playwrights was one of my favorite theaters to work at. Second Stage, all that stuff. And then, and then my wife got pregnant with our first child, and I was like, I need to make money. So I was like, let's go to LA and I've been doing a bunch of theater, and I had auditioned for this play called 6 Degrees of Separation that was going to be at Lincoln Center. But it was months before they were supposed to do it. And I'd been in a few times, and then my wife at the time, she got pregnant, and we decided to go to LA to try to get a pilot. And did I get a pilot that year? I don't think I did. I don't think I got a pilot or anything. Did some guest stars. My daughter's born, first child, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I got to make TV money. I'm having a kid, and I got this play at the Old Globe. I go down to the Old Globe to. Did we talk about this before? No. So I go down to the Old Globe with my wife at the time and our brand new baby, who's like 3 weeks old. And we're looking at the housing that I'm going to move into next week. And while I'm at the Old Globe getting ready to do this play, I get a call. My agent said, hey, remember that 6 Degrees of Separation thing that you auditioned for, but then you moved away? Well, it's a big hit. And the guy that got the role that you auditioned for can only do the first 6 weeks. He could only commit to the first 6 weeks because he's in a TV show. So they want you to do it at the new house, the smaller theater downstairs. And then it's going to move to the Beaumont in the fall to a Broadway contract. And they want you to do it. And I was like, great, a hit? And and it's Broadway, and it was great. So I went back and did 6 Degrees for like a year. So we were downstairs at the new house at Lincoln Center, the New House Theater, which is their off-Broadway contract. Yeah. And we waited for Stockard Channing to finish her commitments to come back. And Courtney Vance took over, and Courtney and I took over for the Broadway move. And yeah.
I'm such a Stockard Channing fan.
Oh, she's so good.
What's she like?
She's very mysterious, to be honest. Like when you're working with her, she's wonderful and incredible to actually do the work, but she doesn't talk about the work a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. She's an actress that does her work and has her thing. But I loved working with her. That whole cast was great. We had a great cast of Evan Handler was in that cast, John Cameron Mitchell, some of the younger people. Yeah, it was great.
Then you go back to LA?
Then I do that in New York for a year, and
I keep trying to pull you back to LA.
You're about to. So I'm doing this big Broadway show, and it's a big hit, and I go in for this movie. And I go in for a part that I really shouldn't be even auditioning for, but they've been looking for someone to play this role for months, for a long time. And the movie's called School Ties, and it's the lead role. And the lead role is a kid going to a private school. Do you know the movie? So he's going to this private prep school, and and he's a football player, and they find out he's Jewish, and suddenly, once they find out he's Jewish, he's sort of, everything changes.
Yeah.
And I tell my agent, I'm not Jewish. I don't look Jewish at all. I'm like, I shouldn't be going in for this. And he's like, they've seen everybody. You should go in. So I go in. Stanley Jaffe's the director at the time. And I audition for this movie, School Ties, and I get the part. I get the lead role. And I'm in the Broadway play, and I'm cast in this lead in Stanley's movie, and I'm like, I am set.
This is working out.
This whole acting thing is working out. Great. I give my notice in the Broadway play, which John Guare, the playwright, is very unhappy about because it's in Tony voter time. And so I create a little conflict there, but I give my notice. And then suddenly Stanley Jaffe, the director, can't direct the movie anymore. He was partners with Sherry Lansing, his Paramount team. And Stanley goes to run Paramount Entertainment, which was the parent company. He basically gets like an executive job that's much more profitable than directing this little movie.
Right.
And so Stanley's out, and Sherry Lansing calls me and says, hey, Stanley's not doing it. We're going to find a new director. Just sit tight, finish your show. And I'm like, okay. So they hire this other guy, Bob Mandel, to direct it. And Bob comes to see me in the play. And then we go to have dinner. And I finished that dinner, and I called my wife at the time, and I said, I'm not going to do this movie.
Really?
I'm like, I can tell. He saw me in the play. I know from this meal, he doesn't see it.
Wow.
And then suddenly I hear friends of mine saying, oh yeah, we're going in for this movie, School Ties, but I'm reading for your role.
Your instincts were on point.
And, you know, like it took like a month or more, and they cast Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
And he does the movie along with, and I had tested with like, Matt Damon was in my test. In fact, I tested on stage 9, which was one of the Voyager stages.
Yeah, I think
One
that
of
was
our
on Planet Hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I did a screen test with Matt Damon and Amy Locane at Paramount for Stanley Jaffe on the same stage where Star Trek shot.
Wow. What was the?
But then I got fired.
Well, what was the month like where you felt like, I'm not going to do this movie? Were you just waiting for the other shoe to drop?
I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I was not enjoying doing the play anymore. I'd been doing it for a long time,
Right.
and I had lost a lot of enthusiasm. And I remember when Sherry called me, and she said, she was very kind about how she put it, but she said, we're going to go another way. And like the next week, I get my paycheck. They paid me.
Oh, they did.
Oh yeah, they paid me. And it wasn't a ton of money because it was not a big budget movie. It was kind of an artsy, you know, passion project for Stanley. It was really,
Right.
Stanley wanted to make the movie because he had been he had gone to a prep school.
Yeah.
Stanley Jaffe did. He went to this WASPy prep school as the only Jewish kid. And so he had this sort of experience and it was a very personal film for him. So when he couldn't direct it, yeah, he was very
It
heartbroken.
just became kind of paint by numbers for the direct. Also, like lions come in, eat the young, and then make more lions.
Yeah, but it was a movie that launched Brendan Fraser, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. Anthony Rapp was in the movie. Anthony was in 6 Degrees with me on Broadway.
Was he really?
Yeah. So I remember like going in the dressing room and Anthony's going, yeah, I'm going to read for School Ties.
Yeah, this won't leave me alone.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
Were you super upset?
Yeah, I was super upset.
Yeah.
And that's when I started thinking about directing. I literally thought that was in probably 91. And I was like, you know, I don't know if I can do this acting thing anymore. Like if this is how it works.
The lack of control over
Yeah, like the ups and the downs and all of that. I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Had you done any directing at all?
Theater stuff,
Yeah.
like at school or in Atlanta when I was in high school.
Right.
But that's when I started getting into directing. It was driven probably a lot about having control.
Sure.
Just feeling a lack of control in my career and having a brand new baby and feeling like, oh my God, I've got to provide for this kid and I'm married and
You got to make this work.
I got to make this work. Like there's no excuses. And if Stanley Jaffe quits a movie, I can't bet my whole career on whether people like me or,
Right.
you know, for the acting stuff. So.
It's a tough career.
Did you start?
Yeah, it is.
Did
It
you
really
start making small things on your own? Did you do a program?
I started
Did you-
shadowing. So the next TV show that I was on, I started shadowing directors, and I started talking with directors and going to their shows. If I wasn't working, you know, and they were working on another TV show, I would like go visit that set. You know, hey, can I come visit your set? What are you working on? I was shadowing on Home Improvement because a friend of mine was one of the producers of the show. So I was looking at sitcoms and sitcom
Free camera,
directors,
single camera.
multicam, comedies, anything. I was just like, let me learn all
Smart,
of this process and this technique and the politics. I could tell that a lot of getting a job as a director was the politics of it all.
Did it make sense?
It totally made sense to me.
Yeah.
It totally, yeah. When I looked at that job, I'm like, I get that job. I know how to do it. I could totally do that job.
Right. The way you became a director on Voyager, didn't you at one point do an independent film, a short film? I don't recall, but they were gracious enough to let you use stuff at Paramount.
Yeah, one of my second short film. Yeah, so there was a man named John Campbell. Do you remember John Campbell?
No.
So where our trailers were, same spot as your trailers, back in that corner there was the construction department. Do you remember where they built all the sets? And there were some offices, which was the facilities management team. So the people that ran all the facilities, that rented out office space to shows and stages to shows. And there was a man
Ran
named
the campus.
Yeah, the campus. So there was a man named John Campbell who ran all the facilities. He was the boss of all that. John Campbell smoked cigarettes. So did I. So we would step outside, and at the time, and I would be smoking. You know, I'd go to smoke a cigarette because I didn't want to stink up my trailer.
Right.
Don't smoke, people. It's bad for you. It's very addictive.
Terrible.
It's horrible. But I would go out to smoke a cigarette, and John would walk out, and he'd smoke, and we'd start talking. And I got along with John great. We would laugh, and so I got to know John Campbell. And then when I was making a short film, one time I mentioned the concept to John, and it was basically Cupid as a hitman in New York City. That was the concept. That you think you're watching this hitman movie, like a Tarantino film, and then when he gets out of his car, he's got little wings on his back, and he's not a killer, he's Cupid, and he's doing a job to make this woman fall in love with this man. So it was a comedy, kind of a black comedy about love, and I mentioned it to John Campbell, and he goes, "Oh, well, you should shoot that on the back lot. That'd be the perfect place to shoot it." And I was like, "Yeah, but I can't afford this. You know, the back lot's like $50,000 a day. I'm making a little short film." He's like, "Let me talk to some people. Let me talk." So John is the one that did it.
The catalyst for
It was John Campbell. Yeah,
Wow.
He's the one that made the back lot happen. It wasn't the Star Trek team. It was. So the upside to smoking cigarettes, people, is you might meet somebody who
You
can
can
help you
become a
out.
famous television director.
are helpful.
They have like herbal ones now, right?
Yeah,
There you go.
you can have a healthy one.
Healthy
I have to go with
cigarettes.
the healthy one.
How did Star Trek come about for you? Voyager.
Oh, yeah.
Or I guess it was TNG.
There was TNG was
Yeah.
the first thing, was the guest spot on the first duty.
Yeah.
And the man that was directing that episode, Paul Lynch, had directed my Twilight Zone years before with Justine Bateman and all that. And so I guess, I don't know if he had, I don't know. You know, agents call you and say, hey, they want to see you for blah, blah, blah. I don't really know how much anybody wants to see me. Like, you know, you put my name on a list, maybe they said sure, or maybe they really do want to see me.
Right.
But I had a sense at the time that maybe because Paul was directing it, he was pushing like, hey, we should get that kid. So when I got that call, I had booked a pilot for a TV show called Going to Extremes that Josh Brand and John Falsey, who had Northern Exposure on the air, and they had I'll Fly Away on the air, and they had a third show on the air. They were big time. Anyway, I booked this pilot. It was filming in Jamaica. It was about a month away, and they were casting other roles, but I had been cast already. And my agent called and said, hey, instead of just sitting around for the next few weeks, why don't you go do this Star Trek thing? And I'd never watched TNG, so I had no idea. And my agent said, a lot of theater actors are doing TNG and they really love it. Like they have a great time and they've requested you or something. So I was like, okay, I don't know, Star Trek, sure, I'll go in. And I went in and I got the role and I had a blast. Like
It's a great episode.
It really surprised me. I mean, knowing Paul directing it was familiar and that felt good. Will Wheaton and I hit it off. We were stayed in touch after that. He was great. The whole gang of the cadets. Usually when you break for lunch, everybody goes to their trailer and takes their suit off and gets comfortable and disappears. Not on that episode. Like Shannon, Phil, and I forget the other actors, but Will Wheaton, myself, they broke us for lunch, and we were like, let's go to the commissary together. Let's go. We hung out. It was really great. Like it was a fun shoot. I had a blast.
It's funny, when I'd gone into your office when you were doing Chuck to shadow you, you had on the wall that pilot, that one that you shot in Jamaica. It was you and several other people.
Oh, Going to Extremes? Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like,
what is that? That was around the same time as TNG, and I really, I don't know if I would have done TNG unless I knew I had a job coming up.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's funny how things.
Did you do? Did you do one a year or more than one?
I would almost do one a year. There was 1 or 2 years in there between the soap and Voyager. Maybe 1 or 2 years where I didn't get a pilot, but usually
were you
I
ever
would.
one of those actors who were on retainer?
No. When I did that Twilight Zone episode in '84, whatever it was, CBS offered me an overall deal, but I was still in school. And I remember going, and my agent said, I don't think you should sign this because it's going to limit you just to CBS stuff. And you're a new hot name that people seem excited about, so keep your options open. And you're also in school, so it wasn't like a ton of money, but that was the only time I ever got offered any kind of overall deal. Yeah.
Well, your character in TNG, Nick, right? Locarno?
Yes, Nick Locarno.
What a name.
What
Nick
a name.
Locarno, yeah. He's a planet now, by the way.
He's a planet now. Just came
I can
back.
talk about it now.
Yeah.
I can talk about it. I had to keep my lips shut for a year, but I can talk about it.
Lower Decks.
Yes.
You got to come back and play that character that started your Star Trek voyage.
Yeah.
How fun was that?
Oh, it was a blast.
Yeah.
It was a blast. Mike
McMahon,
the creator and showrunner of Lower Decks, he called me like a year ago.
Yeah.
He called, maybe even more, I can't remember, but he called me and he said, actually, he didn't even call me. He like messaged me. He said, I don't know if you're interested. I got this idea. He didn't even tell me what it was. I got this idea for Lower Decks, and I already did Lower Decks the first season or second season as Tom Paris. Yeah, season 2. Did a Tom Paris plate thing, which was hilarious.
Yes.
I love that bit. And
we have 100 questions about about collector plates.
Yeah. So he called me and he said, I got this idea, but I don't want to do it unless you really, agree to do this, because I don't want to do it unless you're interested. So, call me. So I called him and he sort of pitched out this thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have this whole sort of dark side. He pitched out the whole idea of this kind of anti-Starfleet, mysterious thing, and that it would be revealed that Nick Locarno, first they'd hear, in his pitch, I think it was more episodes.
Yeah.
And that they were going to tease in my voice as sort of a mystery voice. And so that the audience might initially think, oh, Tom Paris has gone bad. And then when you finally see him, it's Nick Locarno and not Tom Paris. But I think they shrunk the number of episodes because I think that's a hard one to sustain. Like, like to make it last over 6 or 8 or whatever the original idea was, like to really string it out for a long time.
Well,
Did you play a lot of like, is he a bad guy or not a bad guy parts?
No, I didn't actually. Not many.
No.
Usually it was the nice guy. Usually I was always the nice guy.
Well, that's my impression of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting because that is not my impression.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. You're a very nice guy.
But, because both.
He's like,
know-
I thought it was nice. What are you talking about?
I'm pretty nice.
I didn't tell you to fuck off, Mark.
Yeah, that was a story. That wasn't to you. That was.
Because Nick Locarno is not a nice person.
No, I always thought that Nick Locarno, I've said to people, like Nick Locarno and Tom Paris, to me, were polar opposites. I feel like Tom Paris was kind of a jerk on the outside, especially in the beginning, but underneath was really a good guy. He just had a lot of walls up and a lot of defensives up. And over time, he developed into the Tom Paris that married B'Elanna, and people realize he's really a good guy underneath. Nick looked like a good guy on the outside, but was really kind of rotten underneath.
Right.
So they were sort of, in my mind, very opposites. Even
That's
though
really
they
interesting,
looked a lot
Yeah,
alike,
yeah.
though.
Weird.
It's weird, right?
looked exactly the same.
So do you play Nick Locarno,
Yeah.
and then you audition how much later for
Almost be
Paris?
years later, right?
A few years, yeah.
Did you also have the moment like, I've already done?
No, here's what I had. So I play Nick Locarno, I'm going to guess 91. And then in the next 3 years, that series in Jamaica is a big flop. I do a couple pilots that don't get picked up. I have a really bad year in 94. And I have another child born. So now I've got 2 kids and a wife at the time that I'm supporting and trying to support as an actor. And I'm on unemployment in the state of California. And I'm also doing a play at Second Stage in New York for Lort B rates, which is about $325 a week.
Right.
And I'm collecting unemployment and working at the same time because I need both of those checks to just make ends meet. And I'm so down to like pennies in the bank. And my apartment in New York was getting foreclosed on. Like, it was bad.
Oof.
It was a bad year.
Oof.
And I'm sitting there in New York doing this play and just going, what am I going to do? I was even thinking about going legit and like getting a real job and just leaving the business in 94.
Selling insurance or
Yeah, a friend of mine had a t-shirt company, honestly, and I was thinking of going into like a clothing company and work for him. I was like, I can't do this
Those are
anymore.
really hard moments. I've had a couple of those where you're like,
Yeah,
I'm going to be a career coach.
yeah.
And I was like, and I'm going to die slowly and painfully doing that. Or I'm going to try real estate and realized I got to take a test and take
tests and Connor don't mix.
They don't get along very
No.
well. But you know, those moments where you're like, I don't
know if I can do this anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
all
where I
dried
was.
up.
It was the summer of 94.
Yeah.
And I'm in New York and kind of at a bit of a rock bottom. Like I'm just, the school ties thing had happened a few years before. The pilots had not gone. I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I can't make a living in the theater because I was working at a great theater, but not making any money in New York. And I get a call. My agent says, hey, remember that Star Trek episode you did a few years ago? He goes, they're making a new show called Voyager, and they literally put out a casting notice saying a Robbie Duncan McNeill type. I mean, they put my name kind of like the character on TNG.
That's amazing.
Like my name was in, and I was like, I'm right here.
That's me. That's me.
That's
And
great.
so he said, I think you could do this. And I'm doing this play at Second Stage, which is a Lort B. Lort is the name of a contract, an actor's contract, the League of Regional Theaters, LORT, Lort. And they have different budget levels. And so I was not even at the Lort A level. I was like at the Lort B. Or
Which ain't
Lort
great
C.
anyway.
Which ain't great. I literally was making $300 and some a week which was not enough to support a family of 4 on. But because their budget was low at this Lort B theater, they didn't have understudies. They were not required by the union to have understudies. So when my agent called and said, I think you should do this, he also said they want to see you like in 2 days.
In LA.
In LA. And I'm in New York doing a play with no understudies. And I went to the stage manager and I went to the company manager and I kind of talked it through, and they said, well, we're going to have to send the stage manager out doing your role, which was a lead role.
Yeah, book in hand.
With a book in hand. That's our only option because we have but we get it. If you need to go do this, we can't stop you, but that's what will happen.
Wow.
And I felt so bad that I told my agent, I said, look, I can't leave this cast
In the lurch.
in the lurch. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not who I am, and I can't do it. If they're willing to wait 2.5 weeks, I'll be done this play.
Yeah.
And I'll come out the day, or I'll come out on a day off or something. But it was, I just said I can't miss a performance. And so I
What's the
waited.
matter with him?
But they said, sure, we'll wait until the play's over. It was maybe a week or 2 or something left.
Wow.
And so the day after we wrapped on Sunday, I got on a plane, flew out, did my audition, and got cast.
That's amazing.
Off of one audition?
Yeah.
Oh, Connor.
Well, they were looking for him.
Yeah, my name was in the breakdown.
Yeah.
How many times did you audition?
6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had the Frakes experience.
Did he audition a lot?
He auditioned a ton.
Garrett auditioned a ton too.
Did he?
Yeah.
I briefly, I've told this story before, but back in the day when you'd have 3 pilot auditions and you had to go pick up your copy at your agent's office that evening and learn 25 pages, do the best you could, then you'd have to pick which was more important.
Yeah.
And not really being a Star Trek fan at the time.
Yes.
It was last, and I didn't even barely look at it.
Yeah.
And I don't recall what the other 2 pilots were, but clearly they didn't go anywhere. And so I get to my audition, and I go into Ron Surma's office and read for him, and he's just like, "Okay, Connor, I want you to go back to your car
And learn your fucking
hour.
lines.
and come back in." And I was like, "Okay, great. It's going to be an hour better."
An hour. That'll do it.
That'll do it. Yeah.
That'll do it.
Wow. So organic now. And I did that, and then I don't know. I guess they saw something, and then I went back in, read, and then I read for Mary, then I read for Studio, then I read for Network, and then after Network, because I'd heard like you get a call. Other pilot auditions I'd had before.
Yeah.
You get a call pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody called, and nobody called for a week.
Wow.
And so I kept asking, like, what's going on? Is there, I'd look at breakdowns. There was no breakdown for the role again. And I called my manager and said, what's going on? And he said, well, they didn't think that you showed enough awe in a particular scene. And I was like, can I come back in?
Yeah.
All You're going to see so much awe.
So much
from me.
awe.
And they're like, no, they don't want to see you again. I was like, oh, but it's not dead. It's not dead yet.
Wow.
So you're given 7 business days, I believe, to
After a test deal or something?
contractually, and they went past that, and I finally called my manager, and because there was a guy that they had on hold who they wanted to put in the show, and Rick and Brandon apparently were fighting for me, and that was the thing.
Wow.
I didn't know that, of course, at the time, but then that phone call from my manager, Junie Lowry Johnson, said, I can't tell you what's going on, but you're going to sleep well tonight. I didn't sleep a wink, of course.
Yeah.
The next morning I got the job, but it was it was a lot. It was a lot. But then you go to work on Voyager.
Yeah.
Did you love it?
I don't know if I would say that I loved it. I don't know that I did. I think I was at that transition. I didn't realize how, close I was to the directing transition, but I knew that I needed to make a change, like in my opportunities. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy acting anymore. I enjoyed it, I guess, but I wanted to make the directing thing work.
Right.
And to make the directing thing work, I couldn't screw up the acting thing. I had to keep that going long enough to make the directing thing change. So I was just like a good soldier.
Yeah.
I was like, you wrote that story that I don't understand? Sure, I'll do that. I'll do that. You want me to say that? I'll do that. You want whatever you say.
Right.
I'll do whatever you say. I'm just going to be a good soldier, and I'm going to keep reminding them how badly I want to direct.
And you did.
And I did. And then Frakes was supposed to direct in season 2 an episode, and he had to back out, I think because of First Contact. I think he got the First Contact job, and they wanted him to focus on that and not direct the episode of our show. So Rick called me on a Saturday. Rick Berman called me on a Saturday at home. He said, "Do you really think you're ready to direct? Because Frakes, can't start prep on Monday." And I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Okay, the job's yours." Boom.
Wow.
So that was season 2. So it was pretty early.
And you knew the tone. I mean, that's
Yes.
really, as a director of television, sort of like a hired hand, which you've done.
Mm-hmm.
I've often wondered, because the tone's set when you get in there.
Yeah.
And how do you find that? Do you just sort of let it do its own thing? You've got the main, you've got your regular cast who know what they're doing, and you know.
I think,
how does that?
I mean, I think in
happen?
terms of performances and how do you help sort of orchestrate or dial in the performances that are needed for that episode, you have to fundamentally trust that the actors know this world better than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also need to have had conversations with the showrunner, creator, looked at previous episodes, looked at the pilot, talked about your script and what are the most important values in that. Like, what matters to you the most? What are what moments matter the most? And then try to deliver all of that as a hired gun, but you try to bring some new idea that maybe that isn't on the page or that they don't always do, because I think it's important for guest directors to come through and add some value. Like,
Sure.
If you're just showing up and like a traffic cop and just shooting coverage and not adding any value, if you don't have a point of view about, this moment is the critical moment in the episode where the whole world, turns upside down for you.
Right.
I might literally want to pitch a shot where the camera turns upside down or whatever it is that may not be in the script, but you want to add some value and say,
How early on do you rely? When it's early on, how much do you rely on the director of photography?
a lot. A lot, yeah.
Well, same with a cast. That normally in television, the director of photography for the show is the same person for seasons.
Yeah.
Right.
So like the actors, they know their characters. They know this is for people at home. The cinematographer knows the look of the show.
They know what the producers want. And
knows what
they
producers
don't
want.
and,
What the network wants. What the actors will and won't do in certain situations.
Was Marvin the DP?
Marvin was the DP, yeah.
Marvin Rush.
Marvin Rush. Marvin's phenomenal. I love Marvin. The thing about Marvin is, I noticed as an actor watching Marvin that if directors came in and didn't allow Marvin to add something, didn't allow Marvin to have some good ideas and let him do it, then Marvin could sometimes sort of check out.
Out came the newspaper.
Yeah, he would check out and be like, all right, then they can do it.
Right. Yes.
And so when I was directing, I made sure every single day, preferably early in the day, if Marvin came up to me and said, hey, you know what I was thinking? We could start here and kind of crane up. And I'd be like, Marvin, that's great. I love that.
Thank you.
Right.
That's not what I was thinking, but exactly. Right. Thank you for that. That's a great idea. Let's do that. And then I had Marvin on my team the rest of the day. But you have to involve your DP, even if it's not the plan that I had. If it's a good idea and it doesn't hurt any plan that I have, I want him to be engaged.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Marvin Rush is still a fantastic cinematographer.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah. He's even got he's had his eye in that lens for so long.
Yeah.
you can tell like lifelong camera operators.
Yes.
Because there's one eye that's really just sort of normal. The other one's like that.
I was looking into it. Yeah.
The thing I love about Marvin I've only seen it in one other DP I worked with is Marvin loves to put the camera on his shoulder and shoot. So he loved doing those handheld scenes where he could just get in there and, as we played the scene, just whip the camera around.
Yeah. He'd love to be engaged.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many episodes did you direct Voyager?
I think I did 3 or 4.
How many of you? So were you first?
I was the first one on our show, but we ended up having quite a few. Roxanne, of course, directed. Bob Picardo directed 2 episodes.
He did.
Yeah.
Oh, he did. He said he didn't like it.
Yeah. The first time, I think he liked it okay. The second time, I think he almost had a heart attack, a nervous breakdown, and he was just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And he's really good.
Is he?
I thought he was
He's got
great
great
director.
instincts as a storyteller.
Yeah, really smart instincts.
Did Tim?
Tim directed one. Yeah, Tim, Roxanne, Bob, and me. And then Marvin directed one or two, and Dan Curry directed. We had quite a few, like, in the family directors.
What do you think makes directing easy for some people and not for others? Like, it seems to have come naturally for you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different skill sets for directors. I remember once being at the DGA and we were at a director-producer roundtable, and they said, everybody just say one thing that you think is most important in the job of director-producer on a show. And everybody's going around the table, well, you've got to know the visual style. And when it got to me, I said, the most important thing to me is to bring out the best in everyone else around me. Because if I'm bringing out the best in the camera operator and the gaffer and the makeup department and the actors, I got to bring out the best because I don't really do anything. Like as a director, I'm not operating a camera. I'm not putting makeup on. I'm not putting a light. I don't do anything. I just have to be like the audience and say, that's incredible. Or no, I don't understand it yet. Can we do it differently, Yeah.
Well, and everybody there is, I mean, when you're working on a show like Star Trek, you're in the major leagues. So everyone there
super
is
talented,
as good as it gets in that craft.
Yeah.
I love
Let them
your style of
bring
directing.
it.
You and LeVar have a similar thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that it seems that the technical side of it has got nothing to do with what you're doing.
Oh,
So
interesting.
You're an actor and a director, and you have a gift and an ability maybe from coming from acting.
Yeah.
Just probably who you are that you're super supportive.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. At least I found that. Maybe other people wouldn't say the same thing about you.
Yeah, I think to me, I love the actor. And having been on that side of it, I know that all the other stuff doesn't matter if we're not capturing a moment that moves us in some way, that moves the audience, that either scares us in some way or breaks our heart or makes us laugh, or it's got to move us. We've got to feel authentically compelled to pay attention to this.
Right.
And if I'm, as a director, I'm watching a rehearsal or watching a take, and I'm feeling like it's not authentic, maybe something about it's not authentic, or maybe it's just not moving down the path that our story wants to stay on.
Right.
I like the process of how do we get back onto that path, and how do we make it compelling for you as an actor? I want you to feel good too. I never want to walk away from a scene with an actor going, I wish I'd had one more take. Like, let's do it then.
Right.
If you want another take, I want you to walk away feeling like a win.
Yeah. I always would say, can I have one for free?
Yeah, and it's always the best one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would often say to actors, sometimes manipulatively, I'd be like, we've got it. We've got this scene. Let's just do one for fun now.
Yeah.
Because honestly, sometimes we didn't have it.
Yeah.
But I knew that if they felt like there's no pressure, they're going to have more fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, naming names, but we had at least one director who came from an editing background, and there'd be times you'd do the scene, you'd maybe get the master done, and from that point forward, we no longer needed to do the whole scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, we got it. Let's start from line 12, and I'd be like,
I can't just jump.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And he's like, okay, go ahead and do it. Just know
I'm never
going to use it. I'd be like,
I hate that.
oh, come on. So the organic process of an inorganic experience.
That's remarkable.
It gets harder. And, had I not been a regular, had I been a guest star, I would have been like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
all right. And I guess we'll start page 2 and ramp it up for that. And I never liked that. It's, the process of sharing the experience of what you're making is vital.
Yeah.
And it's an odd thing because in this line of work, so much of it is, cut and paste and out of order. And, you're trying to tell the arc of a story, but you start on day 1 at page 47, you jump to 112 and you go back to 3. And you've got to have everybody's got to have in their head how it's going to look.
Mm-hmm.
That's assuming you have the whole script written.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I want to talk about Chuck a little bit. I don't want to jump over Voyager too much.
Yeah.
But, how did you wind up getting into the executive producing?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had made a couple of short films. So I had learned a lot about all the aspects. I felt like my short films for me were, I hadn't gone to film school. I hadn't even finished acting school. So I wanted to learn. So I took some classes at AFI. I made some shorts where I intentionally shot on film and cut on film and did optical titles. And, I went through all of the processes that you would go through in a film school so I could understand how film worked. Film, not HD video, not cutting on video, but film.
Right.
And so, I made a couple of shorts. So I had produced those with my own money and my own time and gone to class. So I had some more tools now. I knew, more experience. And then I did this show called What About Brian? I directed for ABC. And they were getting rid of their producing director. And they really liked my episode. It was a 1-hour light comedy, romantic comedy thing, kind of like Friends. It was like a 1-hour Friends thing. Barry Watson was the star, and they liked my episode, and they were getting rid of their producing director. So they called my agent, and they said, "Hey, would he want to come in and produce the show, take over?" And my agent called, and I'm like, I don't even know what that job is. What is that job? And so I said, let me find out what that job is. And so I called some producer friends of mine. I'm like, can you tell me, what do I need to know? Because I haven't had experience as a director with a lot of producing directors. Very few at that point. They weren't as common as they are now. I didn't have that experience as an actor with a lot of with any producing directors, really. So I was like, what do they do? I got some information, and then I called my agent back, and I'm like, let me give it a shot. And I learned a lot on What About Brian? I finished that season. Then I directed a pilot called Samantha Who with Christina Applegate that went to series, a comedy. When that pilot went to series, I got a call also to produce Chuck. And I was like, do I stay with my Samantha Who show? But I looked at that Chuck pilot that McG directed, and I was like, oh my God, it's got comedy, it's got action, chase scenes, it's got drama, it's a little sci-fi with a computer in his head. Everything that I like is in that. But I loved Christina Applegate and the pilot I had done, and I could have stayed on with that. But I made I gambled and said, let me try to go to this other McG show and produce that. And it was great. Yeah.
Do you enjoy producing?
I love producing. Yeah, I really do.
What about it?
It's awesome. You're the boss.
You're really more, it's in a way more the boss than when I was directing. Because you're involved so far ahead of a director.
Yeah.
If you think about the director comes in and you hand him a palette of paints and some brushes and you say, go ahead, paint it. But if I only hand him watercolors and, you know, these 2 brushes, then that's all he can paint with. Right? Or I guess what I'm saying is like, I get to choose the tool. I get to narrow down and make the zone where this show is going to land. And I'm hoping that the director will be on the same page and the actors will deliver. But I'm trying to set it up for the best success that I can. You know, the show Resident Alien that I've been doing for a few years, we had, I can't do spoilers because the season hasn't come out yet, but we had something early on in the season that the studio said, it's impossible. Nope, you can't do that story. You can't do it. You can't, just don't even do it. And the showrunner kept saying to me, I really want to tell this story. And I'm like, I think there's a way we can do it. And long story short, I was able to push and muscle all year to figure out a solution to do this story that the studio from day one kept saying, no, you can't do it. We can't afford it. It's impossible. There's no way you'll ever be able to do this story because we don't have the money. We just can't do it. And we did it. And that's the producing part. But if I had just been directing that episode, then I could have come in and they could have said, yeah, you got to shoot that in a high school gymnasium.
Right.
Well, instead of where we shot, instead of the kind of story that we ended up telling.
The producer gets to help form the narrative of the entire show.
Yes, absolutely.
Every episode, and is hiring directors for individual episodes.
Hiring directors, staffing the departments, figuring out who
all
your
the
production
writers
designer, your costume designer, your DPs, you're really creating not just the elements that go into what the story is, but you're also deciding what elements of your experience. Like if I don't think that there's someone who fits the tone of our crew and the kind of experience I want, then either we change that behavior or we just replace them and we find someone else. Because I don't want, like I value the process for the shows that I do. I want people to finish and say, that was the best show I ever did. I would, do whatever they wanted because that producer treated me with such respect and I love the environment. And to me, that's almost not more important than the show, but it's equal to the show. Making
the TV and film is such a stressful process. The schedules are so tight. The demands on the money are so intense. And to the people who really value relieving as much stress as possible in that process, I love there's sort of an uptick lately. You hear a lot of stories of Mary Howard was saying it, we've got a no asshole rule.
Yeah.
If you're an asshole, you're not working on the show.
Yeah.
And you never used to hear that.
No, in fact,
I worked for a lot of assholes. Yeah.
Yeah, they were much more common.
Yeah.
That I think, back when I started, it was the screamers and the yellers and the kind of authoritarian, dominant, very testosterone driven sort of yelling
from the other room, throwing shit through the door.
You told me a story, not naming names at all, but when you were directing us, that you directed a show where one of the actors, and I boggled my mind how this would happen. You guys just didn't jive together. And,
not naming names.
Not naming names. But after every line, he would say something awful to you in between lines.
Oh, he would scream and say the most horrible thing while we're rolling, and I kept the camera rolling.
Oh, you're talking about Dominic.
No.
I got you, buddy.
I was waiting for someone to say that. I was like, I'm not saying it.
On the flip side of that, do you have favorites? Do you have either producing and directing experiences that you've had that you can pick from?
I loved Chuck. I really did. Although it's funny, I just saw Zach Levi last night. He came over and we were reliving some of the glory days, and it was the hardest show I ever did by far because of all of the mashup of styles with the action comedy and the romance and all of it. It was tough, and we didn't have a lot of resources. It was always on the bubble, so we never had much money to play with. But Chuck was one of my favorites. It's just that crew and the cast. Once we found our footing and we kind of gelled together and bonded each other, it was phenomenal.
I remember shadowing you on the finale, and because we did not have, and I'll call it a luxury that Star Trek had, where you could go into the program and learn directing, and it came down from on high that no new directors were ever going to do our show. So, you're gracious enough to let me shadow you on the finale. And I remember particularly there was a night, you hadn't acted since Voyager, I don't believe, and you're in the helicopter.
Oh, they wanted me to be in the show. And I was like, I don't want to be in the show. I don't want to. Just be in the show. Just be the SWAT guy. And I was up in the helicopter on the platform. We were pretending, it was a poor man's process. We had landed a helicopter on this deck. And so we were filming up into the sky as if it were flying.
As if we're in the air, yeah.
And I'm having to sit with the other actors in the helicopter. And I asked our line producer to direct this scene. I was like, Paul, you just run it because I'm stuck up here. And is that what you're talking about? And I remember sitting there with the actors, and they're all talking about their agents and their auditions. And I'm like, I just want to be down there. I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be up here.
I don't want to hear this. I don't want to listen to it. It's sad and depressing to me. I want to be down there by the monitor.
Get me out of here.
Get me out of here.
But I remember, I think it was that night. So there was the big helicopter thing and down the street and all that and all the things that were involved. And then it was either before that scene or after that scene, but it had to be kind of rushed. There was a scene that you were shooting in the diner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
I forgot about all this stuff.
I remember this because that was the moment where I was like, I can't do this.
Oh, Connor. Oh, no.
Because I was like, how are you going to shoot this? And you were like, well, we're going to come in here. We're going to pop that.
Connor was like,
and we're out of here in like 2 hours. And I'm like, oh no, this may not be for me without a lot of work. And I was just like, because you went from giant scene
to like 2 people in a diner.
Yeah.
Was there a fight or something? There was some trick in there. Yeah. There was something that we had to do.
Yeah.
And I remember,
the first one with the helicopter, I thought, I don't know that I could do that. And then with the amount of time that you had to shoot in the diner,
there's never enough time.
Never enough time.
Yeah.
I was just like, nope.
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
That's fun. That's the magic of movie making.
Well, yeah,
you got to smash 3 scenes together to make a day. And, keep your narrative together.
Terrifying.
It's fun.
Absolutely terrifying.
Terrifying. Yeah.
And how do you like doing Resident Alien?
I love Resident Alien.
Alan
Tudyk.
Alan's amazing. Yeah.
He's a genius. He's just
our
Juilliard.
our
dropout.
Yeah, great.
Like me.
We have a pet avocado tree. Erica's avocado tree. He's in the front.
He's not here.
He's in the ER.
He's in the ER. He's going
He's usually
through
here.
something right now. He's okay. He survived. But
celiac.
When we started this show, we had an avocado tree next to her in a little pot, and the fans of our show started saying, "What's the plant's name? You got to name the plant."
Oh.
And we did a vote, and they named it Wash after Alan's character, Firefly. Yeah. Because he says, "I'm a leaf on the wind."
Yeah, that's right.
Firefly. Yeah.
Watch How I Soar, right?
Watch How I Soar. Yeah. A lot of people were asking about.
Well, we should probably
fan questions.
The times that we have left, do the fan questions.
Yeah.
And,
Let's do it.
And whatnot.
All right.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Craig Drebbett from Patreon asks, if given the chance, would you like to direct a theater production on Broadway? Which production would be your first choice?
Theater on Broadway. Wow. I used to really want to do that. And I think as time has gone by, it's been so long since I've been in the theater. I mean, you know this. There's a process to the theater. Like, it's not just, oh, let's rehearse and then jump on stage. There's Q to Q nights, there's tech nights, there's 10 out of 12s. There's all these things that are just even simple habits like half-hour call or
right.
I'm so out of the culture. I'm so rusty in the culture of that I think I would need some time to kind of be back in the process, if that makes sense, before I just jump to directing a theater.
Right.
You could make a TV show about a Broadway theater.
That's true. I did that. I worked on one of those. I did Smash.
Oh, there you
I
go.
directed Smash, yeah.
But, they're also...
That was fun. I forgot about
They're
that.
apples and oranges. I mean, you direct a play, and after opening night, you don't get to touch it anymore.
Not really. It's
The
locked.
stage managers run the show.
Yeah.
Whereas, you're hands-on throughout the whole process with the editing
Yeah.
and everything with a film or television project.
But I would like to, the question of directing a theater production on Broadway, what would I like to direct? What would be my first choice? You know what? It just occurred to me. I would like to direct a revival of The Wizard of Oz.
I thought you were going to say that.
I would like to do an all children's production of The Wizard of Oz.
That's funny.
That would be
That's
so cool.
what I would like to do.
Love that
Well
answer. All right. Next question. Amy Tudor from Patreon asks, you've mentioned in the Delta Flyers your interest in history. What is your favorite period of history to read about? And if you could visit any time or place for a day, where would you go?
Interesting. First of all, Amy is a Delta Flyers Patreon member. So hi, Amy.
Hi, Amy.
Let's see.
Thank you for sharing her.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of love to go around. Favorite part of history? I love American history a lot. I'm reading a George Washington. I've been reading this 1,000-page George Washington biography for months now, but
Which one is it?
it's the Ron Chernow one. It's it's the big fat
Tome.
George Washington. Yeah, and I keep getting distracted with other things, but I just read Benedict Arnold's biography. I love Civil War history. I love American history. So if I could visit any time or place, my favorite part of history would be somewhere in the pre-Revolutionary War, I think. Colonial America. I'd love to see what was going on politics. Yeah.
Big history guy.
Yeah.
I love history.
If it's not Rome, it's American Revolution, pre and post, about 100 years in each direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good question, Amy.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Jesse from the Crusher Convo podcast. Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Jesse.
From Patreon. Hi, Robert. What do you feel is the most important thing you have learned by doing your own podcast? Also a good question.
Great question. The most important thing I've learned, I think the most important thing I've learned from our podcast so far is some of my memories of doing Star Trek were wrong.
Oh.
I've really learned that. I had a lot of judgments that I had about our show, good or bad, that were cleared up for me a lot. Like I feel like a much more honest and realistic kind of relationship with our show now, having gone back and really looked at it critically in the way we've done. And
That's really awesome.
much more appreciation for everybody's work. And there's some great stuff.
Great
That's
stuff.
awesome.
Great.
The same thing. I would echo that for one, I'd never really seen Deep Space Nine. Armin.
So
I
good.
love Armin. I love Armin. He's
So good.
So good.
Wow.
Seeing it in passing, and I'd be like, funny head,
Yeah.
crazy teeth. But, when you dive into what he was doing and how he was doing it,
Yeah.
to be able to do it, as we all know,
With all that-
In that makeup,
Rubber, yeah.
I mean, kudos, Armin Sherman.
Yeah, it's funny with Armin, because we just saw Armin for breakfast this morning, and he was talking about how when he first came on the show, I'm sure he mentioned this if you guys talked to him, he thought that the writers were all expecting this comedic relief character. Did he talk about that? Like they were
Yeah, he
kind of
talked
writing
about that.
jokes and writing bits,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he just wasn't doing it. He's like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I want this to be a more substantial character, a much more
Three-dimensional.
more three-dimensional and interesting and complicated than just a bunch of jokes.
The yuck bar guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how the writing sort of had to adapt to what he was doing, because he just
Right.
refused to go to the cheap jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he kept his job.
And he kept his job, yeah.
General Grievous 696
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
General Grievous.
from YouTube asks, how much did you influence your character of Tom Paris versus how he influenced you? Did you enjoy playing Tom or Nick more?
Interesting. I think that, I mean, like I said, when I came on that show, I was just like, whatever you want. You tell me what you want, I'll do it. And so initially, they were writing this very arrogant, very womanizing, very, I don't think he was a very appealing character, but I was like,
Loner.
he was a loner. He was kind of rude. He was not very likable. But I was like, if that's what you want, that's what you're writing, sure. Yes, tell me what to do. I'll show up. Just let me direct. Please let me direct. I'll do it. And then after the first year or so, I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this because I don't like what they're writing. Like, I don't like this person.
Yeah.
It's not fun to play. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. And so I think I started influencing the character. I talked to them about some of my concerns more after that first year, and I wish I had done that earlier.
Yeah.
I wish I had not been such a good soldier right out of the gate.
Tom Paris.
I don't like the first.
And maybe because of that, actually, I think that Tom, of all those main characters in that show, I think Tom had one of the most
biggest
complete arcs.
Yeah.
You know, to come from somebody who needs redemption and move all the way into like he's everyone's brother by the end.
Yeah.
The grown man-child, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was a jerk in the beginning, though.
Yeah.
He was an asshole.
Yeah.
So those conversations helped that you were having.
Yeah, I think I started trying to gently, without losing my opportunity to direct. I was like, very respectfully.
That's
Maybe
great.
we could try this.
Last question? Yep.
Yes.
Rocket Dude from Patreon. I love these names.
Yeah, I got some good fans here. General Grievous and Rocket Dude.
Asks, more fun to direct Voyager or My Boys?
I assume he's talking about Connor and Dominic.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I directed a TV show
I know, I
called
was
My
gonna say
Boys.
that.
My Boys. Oh.
I did.
Well, that's too bad.
I think that's what he means.
Well, that's more funny, even.
There was this half-hour comedy called My Boys
Yeah.
that I directed. Jim Gaffigan was on it.
Oh, wow. I bet he was awesome.
Yeah, Betsy Tonks created it, and it had a great writing staff. Or My Boys. I don't know if I ever had fun directing Voyager, I'll be honest, because it was early on.
Oh,
I was
sure.
very stressed out. The one time I did have fun was the episode Someone to Watch Over Me, which had, what's his name from Kids in the Hall? I can't remember his name. One of the guys from Kids in the Hall comedy group, and I got to cast a couple actor friends of mine, David Burke and Brian McNamara got to be in the episode. So I felt very comfortable directing that episode, but I wouldn't say the other ones were fun. I was stressed out. Yeah, by the time I got to My Boys, that half-hour comedy, I had a blast doing that. And directing you guys was fun. I relaxed. By the time I got to your
Yeah, you
show,
seem very relaxed.
I was pretty relaxed.
Yeah. You directed me a lot.
I feel like I did. I love that episode where you guys went down to the center of the earth, that one. Do you remember we did all the rock climbing stuff? You were rappelling and you slid down.
Anthony Montgomery breaks his leg.
Yeah, that was great.
I loved that episode, like from just an adventure and a logistics standpoint.
Went to save some denobulans.
That's
Who
right.
didn't want to leave the planet.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Good memory.
Yeah. Well, he's the Oracle.
Yes.
What else happened in that?
A lot. Actually, the planet there was a political upheaval, a coup on the planet, and they were kicking all aliens. Anyone who wasn't a member of that race from that planet had to leave.
Had to leave.
And Enterprise sent a couple of y'all down to go get some denobulans that were in a cave, and they didn't want to leave.
And I think there was some insect in the tent.
Dead rocks.
That same episode where Anthony's terrified of this insect in the tent that we're sleeping in.
No, I don't remember that part.
the rocks and whatever.
Yeah, you were climbing. The rock climbing was amazing.
It was great. It was also nice because sometimes Star Trek can be sort of still is the wrong word, but there's not a lot of moving around, and shaking the thing and climbing up things, and this was a rare event to be able to we actually rock climbed. Yeah, you rock climbed. We built a set in the corner, and we had these stalactites and stalagmites that we'd move around, and we'd change camera angle. We had a big set for the Star Trek shows, but a small set for the story we were telling. Yes.
And we used some of the cave set that you climbed through these tiny things, and I think we dragged you guys along the floor for some of the sliding. We used every low budget trick in the book to get the most
attention
movement.
to the wagon. Yeah,
that was fun.
That was great.
I saw that you directed Dawson's Creek.
I did a bunch of Dawson's
I'm a big
Creek.
fan of Dawson.
I was a huge fan.
Were you?
I love that show.
I was obsessed. I was so young. I feel like I was too young to watch some of that stuff at the time.
Okay, you don't need to rub it in. It's like, okay.
I was like, he's sleeping with his teacher. Oh my God.
It was so fun.
It was such a great show.
So Dawson's Creek filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Oh.
Right. And it was right after in 2001, when we finished Voyager, and you guys were starting around 2001, right? Mm-hmm. It was fall of 2001, I think. And I got my first episode of Dawson's Creek, and I just lucked out that I got this amazing sort of unusual episode, my first one there, where Dawson's father had died the episode before in a car accident, and all the characters were having these sort of living memories about moments with Dawson's father. Mm. And so I was able to stylistically do these cool camera things and these kind of magical realism where Dawson's dad would appear to someone in sort of this. Do you remember the episode?
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. But it was a great episode, very popular, and James Van Der Beek at the end had to cry, and he'd never cried on the show.
Oh, oof.
And they told me, I don't know if you can get him to cry. Like, we've tried before. And so I made that my mission, and we were successful, long story short. He had a beautiful scene where he finally broke down at the end of the episode. And because of all of that, they really liked having me around. And so I came back and was sort of like, I might as well have been a producing director on that show the last 2 years, because I probably did 8 or 10 episodes or something.
Yeah. Did you make him cry?
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't think I made him cry.
I made him
anymore,
cry every week.
I made him do an improv one day, which, you've been on sets before. Like, how many TV directors said, let's just improv this?
None.
Yeah, that's
0,
rare, right?
But there was one moment where I wanted him and the other character to kind of overlap, and I wanted them to argue in a way that it just felt too stiff. And I was like, James, let's just do an improv. Let's you're a car salesman. I can't remember what I said, but I gave him new characters. I'm like, sell him, make him, convince him.
Right.
And James turned to me, he's like, what? I was like, you're an actor. Right. Let's do some acting.
Right, exactly.
Let's work.
It's like an actor's dream.
It was great. And he did it. And it was, and right when they finally found that rhythm I was looking for, I was like, that's it.
Right.
Let's go.
No,
Places, let's go. That's what we're looking for, what you just did. And he's like,
fun.
oh, I get it, I get it.
Right.
I might have to rewatch that show.
Now.
So it's time to play some Star Trek trivia. It's you two against producer Mark.
Yay.
And,
This does not seem like a fair fight. I think, no.
Connor and Robbie, you're playing for Lexi. Hi, Lexi.
Hi, Lexi.
And Mark, you're playing for?
Jay is our newest, shiniest Patreon member. Welcome to the family, Jay. Thank you.
All right.
Winner gets a new car.
Tiny little car.
Question number 1. Are we ready?
Sure.
I don't know.
In the Voyager episode, Past Tense, Part 1 and 2, what knowledge of Tom Paris's came in handy? A, 20th century pop culture. B, 21st century pop culture. C, linguistics. Or D, engineering.
You got it.
20th century pop culture.
Woo!
Starting off hot.
Nice. I'm feeling pretty good about this.
You're on a roll.
They're all geared towards your character.
Great.
A bad thing.
Exactly.
Question number 2. Who was...
I think he let me win, by the way. Yeah.
My button's all the way over here.
Question number 2. Who was captain of the Enterprise at the beginning of Star Trek The Motion Picture? A. Spock. B. Kirk. C. Scotty. D. Decker.
What'd you get?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Who was captain of the
You're just focused on push fast.
He's the button guy.
Who was captain of the Enterprise at the beginning of Star Trek The Motion Picture? A. Spock. B. Kirk. C. Scotty. Or D. Decker.
Well, I mean, it can't be Kirk. Can it? I mean, that seems to be like a...
Seems like too easy.
Yeah, the Decker, the last one?
Yeah, I would go with Decker.
Decker.
Son of a bitch.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I don't even know who Decker is.
I don't either.
Yeah, but I think the logic there, yeah, good deduction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question number 3. What species of whales does Dr. Gillian Taylor say are virtually gone from Earth's oceans in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home? A. Killer whales. B. Blue whales. C. Humpback whales. Or D. Gray whales.
Yes. Humpback whales.
What are the other 3?
Great. Wait, what?
Blue?
Blue.
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 What?
Kinda helps you there.
It's during the tour at the beginning. When she's
What?
giving a tour through.
Oh, what a trick question. I didn't even listen to it.
You've been bamboozled.
Damn it.
All right.
Blue whales.
Green
I'm a
whales.
moron. I'm a big giant moron. All right.
All right. Question number 4. What toy or toys did Quark's mother save for him from when he was a child? A. Latinum bank. B. Hollow novels. C. Morador Mo action figures.
Hang on, read it one more time. It's Marauder Mo.
Oh, Marauder Mo.
Mo.
Marauder Mo. Or D. Teeth sharpeners.
It's got to be the bank, right?
I would go with teeth sharpeners. I don't know why, but
Let's go with teeth sharpeners.
Mark. The action figures.
I never would have gotten that. I would have gone banker teeth.
Right. So
Excellent.
briefly,
Marauder Mo.
mispronouncing things. That's the best one we've ever done. Mark was like, "So we've got a question from Anal OG."
Anal OG Rex. And somebody goes, Analog Rex.
Yeah.
Gee.
Oh, my face turned so red.
Cried. I was
You were
laughing
crying.
so hard.
That's some of the best laughing I've ever seen you do. And I've seen you laugh. Gosh. I'm embarrassed still.
Anal OG.
Anal OG Rex.
All right. Question number 5. Who was in charge of the assembly team for the Enterprise D? A. Eric Pressman. B. Admiral Forrest. C. Leah Brahms. Or D. Alina Nechayev.
Yep.
No, I don't know what to say. I'm going to go with Elena Nechayev.
Mark. Leah Brahms.
Wow.
Who
So-
Miss LeVar Burton's character fell in love with the holographic version of in
Oh.
TNG.
There you
He's
go.
trying to solve an engineering problem.
Well, you guys won, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, they won.
We did.
We
You guys
did.
won for
Nice.
Congratulations,
You guys
Lexi.
won for Lexi.
Lexi.
Are you guys
Deserved
ready
it.
to see how Robbie will do on Connor's remote island?
Yeah.
I'm excited.
All right. So here's the deal. You're on this island
Yeah.
for the rest of your life.
Okay.
You're alone. So what would your cuisine be?
I think, this is just lately. So I've been getting into these Instagram recipes.
Oh,
There's a lot of them.
I'm like collecting all of and the ones that I'm into right now are a lot of Asian like soups, Asian influenced dishes. So I'm playing with all these like crushed chili,
Making your own chili oil? Yeah.
making
Yeah,
chili
yeah.
oil, doing all that, right? So right now I'm gonna go with Asian
Southeast
cuisine.
Asian or just Asian? That's a lot.
I know. That's why I picked it.
Okay, Asian cuisine. I will allow that.
No, you're so. Wow.
I feel
This is a
like
first.
today.
Normally, you would hold your feet to the fire.
Can't do that. Because if you can say Mediterranean cuisine, I guess you can say Asian cuisine.
There you go.
Your author.
My author. Did you say I get Shakespeare?
You
Yeah.
already have Shakespeare.
I already have Shakespeare. Wow. My author. Who would my author be? I love Walker Percy. He's a Southern author.
Mm-hmm.
That would be very comforting to me. If I've got Shakespeare and Walker Percy,
Yeah.
yes, I'll go with Walker Percy.
What did he write? Did he write The Dog of the South?
Dog of the South. He wrote Moviegoer. I think he wrote Dog of the South. Yeah. Moviegoer is one of my favorite books of forever.
How many does he have?
He's got a dozen or so.
There you go. Read them over and over again.
Yeah, and you got Shakespeare, so
Right, which will confuse you for
Yes.
a long time. What is it now? A dessert.
boy, I do like pie. But I like ice cream. I'm gonna go ice cream.
Okay.
All right. Not bad.
Can't go
Okay.
bad. Yeah, with ice cream.
Yeah,
Pull you down.
all the
What do we
ice
have
creams.
now? Musician.
REM.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Keep it in the
No
South.
question. No question.
Yeah.
REM.
We'll go back to Rockville. And your bonus item. Now, again, I joke about Jimmy Darren picking the Ferrari. You can also pick something that could, like a hammock or like a machete that could, or a fire starter. It's something, or a motorcycle.
Oh, yeah, a motorcycle. Thank you. I'll take a
Just sit on
motorcycle. I can ride it around the island.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just ride it around.
time for the-
How big is it's a tiny island?
No.
Is there a hill or two?
Sure. You can have a hill or two.
Great, then I'll take the
Thank
motorcycle.
God, all of a sudden. You
I mean, if it's a tiny
can
island,
have a track.
I could, yeah. We'll have like a road course.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
It's luxury.
We are out of time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
We'd like to give you a
We have a
gift.
gift.
What? Oh,
Uncle Nearest.
Never heard of that one.
That is a good whiskey. Are you
Anyway,
kidding
thanks
me?
for
That's a
being here
great
today.
bourbon. Thank you.
And I believe we have another
Wow.
guest.
We have another.
What?
We're going to booze you up.
Yes, you are.
So this is a great wine from Alamitos Vineyards.
Yes.
We'd like to thank Sean and Chris. Hi guys. We're in San Jose. Their vineyard's really beautiful.
This
And,
is their vineyard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're
Wonderful.
Patreon members of ours, and they've sent us a couple of cases of wine to give to our guests.
Which one is that?
This is the Pinot
the
Noir.
Pinot.
Pinot's great.
Is it good?
Yeah.
I love Pinot Noir.
It's really good.
We also
Wonderful.
have a cab if you want to swap it out.
No, I love the Pinot Noir. This is great.
Yeah,
What
there
a
you
good
go.
combo.
Have fun.
And we're giving you a cat.
And you're giving me rehab.
I'd like to do a thank you. I don't want to forget
Yeah,
about
thank
the Random REDSHIRT podcast. Thank you guys so much for doing trivia for us. And they're a big fan of yours, and I'd love to have you on
What's it called
the
again?
Random REDSHIrt podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're great. They're the
Yeah,
ones who
right.
were on the stage during our live event, and
Yeah.
They do our trivia every week.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. This was fun. Finally.
Robert Duncan McNeill, everybody.
Like, subscribe, and join us on